Hello, my name is Ivonne Lujano Vilchis. I am a fourth-year PhD candidate at Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College at Arizona State University. I am from Mexico, from a town called Toluca, and my research interests are open access, scholarly publications, and open science. Currently, I'm doing my dissertation on the largest open access journal in the world called PLOS ONE, and I am analyzing how diversity of editorial board members influence the decisions of what knowledge should be published. My main motivation to pursue the PhD in Education Policy and Evaluation at ASU is my strong belief in open access to academic knowledge. During my professional life, I worked with several initiatives for the accessibility to scholarly publications, particularly academic journals, through publishers and platforms that do not charge any fee to readers. Open access benefits universities, libraries, students, professors, and other specialized readers, as well as the general population that could benefit from the knowledge produced in various research settings, from a patient wanting to know about her disease to a parent interested in her child's school curriculum orientation. I had collaborated with an initiative called Directory of Open Access Journals, an index based in Europe but with worldwide coverage. I served academic journals across Latin America, where we have a long tradition of open access publishing. Thanks to that opportunity, I collaborated with several editorial teams and publication stakeholders like universities and public agencies for science and research, which helped me realize the challenges and shortcomings of open access. This was a big motivation to embark on my doctoral journey. I wanted to know more and provide my insights about these issues, particularly based on research tools and data that can inform institutional and national policy decisions. In my opinion, many of the open access and open science policies that have been implemented in the last years are scarcely supported by research, particularly from a qualitative perspective. The Program of Education Policy and Evaluation at Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College has positively impacted my research interests because it provided me the chance to work with my primary advisor, Dr. Gustavo Fishman, who is a well-known advocate for open access in Latin America. And my committee members, Dr. Tong Jung Kim, Dr. Messer Tai Lu, and Dr. Ines Dussel, who have supported me in developing my research and my own voice as a scholar. Also, Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College gave me the huge opportunity of leading the journal Current Issues in Education, a publication produced by doctoral students of the 3 programs at Teachers College. In the role of editor-in-chief, I had the enormous chance to develop my leadership skills and also experience the challenges of editing an open access journal only with the support of an institution. We happily expanded our editorial board and published articles on educational research from other doctoral students and scholars in the US and from other countries too. It has been a great experience that I recommend any doctoral student to take, especially if your plans involve working in academia. I would say that the current global scholarly publishing landscape looks a little discouraging, especially because most of the open access policies being implemented worldwide are basically market-driven and do not necessarily disrupt the status quo originally intended with the open access declarations signed by scholars and advocates of open access in the global north or the other alternative movements originated in the global south. Moreover, the current state of scholarly communication is reproducing, when not deepening, the gaps between those who have resources to do research and pay to publish, and those who do not, which are the majority of researchers around the world. The increasing demands for alternative publishing models are resulting in new business models that do not address these inequalities. For example, the same companies that have dominated the market of publications and make unbelievable profit margins thanks to the free labor of scholars who write and review papers are coming up with business models that keep favoring them at the expense of the increasingly precarious budgets of universities and libraries. Other alternative models, such as the so-called diamond open access journals, which are basically not charging any fees to authors or readers, are scarcely supported. And I would say that there is also a misunderstanding of those journals, because in this logic of prestige and reputation in academia, scholars tend to think that if a journal is not supported by a wealthy publisher located in Europe, it is a bad quality journal. In reality, the scientific quality is given by scholars who, in most cases, work and are paid by academic institutions, not by publishers. That is why we have recently seen the resignation of entire editorial boards of reputable health and medicine journals due to the incompatibilities of a commodity marketed scholarly publishing model and the mission of broad dissemination of knowledge without barriers that most academics embrace. So in my view, there is an extremely unequal landscape of scientific production that is based on systemic and structural issues such as racism, patriarchy, and colonialism. I have witnessed how the epistemic authority of journals and editors who are located in so-called peripheral, not only countries, but also disciplines or positions such as early career researchers and graduate students is undermined. Some of the journals are called predatory just for the way they look or the country they are published in. And also, in my research, I have studied gender inequalities in the decision-making positions of editorial boards. Just to cite an example, a recently published study conducted by Fengyuan Liu and colleagues found that in a sample of 1,000 journals in 15 disciplines, only 8% of editors-in-chief are women. In sum, I think scholarly publishing policies need to look at these inequalities and the unintended consequences of implementing strategies that put publishers' profit in the center, rather than the benefits of science and research to society. Teaching in Mexico could be a risky job for many reasons. On the one hand, due to the violence crisis that we are going through, even universities are vulnerable to crime and insecurity. Thus, teaching involves not only the traditional tasks of creating environments to embrace knowledge, discover things, critically discuss topics, and the like, but teaching also consists in creating safe and peaceful spaces for students where they can feel that problems can be discussed and solved through dialogue and conversation, active listening, and respect to others. We have a huge mission of counterbalancing the violence from outside schools and universities. Many of the students have suffered from violence themselves, so teaching in universities, especially in public ones where the less served populations attend, is a challenge for us because no one can effectively learn if their priority is basically being alive. On the other hand, teaching in public universities in Mexico is a precarious job. If you want to make a living out of it, you have to juggle other hats too, because the salaries are low and the job stability in most of the time is non-existent. So I think one of the big challenges is dignifying the teaching profession and collectively fighting for our labor rights, because we teach in extremely precarious working conditions. I think these situations have, on the other hand, helped me develop my pedagogy, which is based on the ethics of care, empathy, and compassion. I strongly believe in a pedagogy that empowers students and gives them intellectual and technical tools to thrive in any endeavor they undertake. And I see policy making through the same lens. I think we need educational and science policies that embrace a humane approach where the well-being of individual humans and non-humans it is at the center. Especially within this environmental crisis we live in, I envision a teaching and learning practice that flips from competition and merit-based pedagogies to collaboration and collective action to have more peaceful and environmentally responsible education futures. First of all, I think open science policies can help universities debunk the myth of the ivory tower. For centuries, universities have been places of exclusion of people and different types of knowledge, especially non-Western knowledge, in the name of modern principles such as objectivity and universality. This has damaged the reputation of universities, which are seen as places where racism and colonialism are reinforced. Open science advocates for true collaboration, interaction, and equitable participation of different stakeholders in knowledge production, from citizens to scholars, collectives, and even companies. Secondly, open science can also make visible benefits of research for society. In my view, the transparency that can be achieved thanks to platforms and tools that make research outputs available to everyone help universities and governments comply with their accountable goals. For example, in the past, it was very difficult to know how editors decided what manuscripts were merited to be published and why. Nowadays, we can see more and more journals implementing open peer review, with which anyone can look inside the black box and understand how science works. I think this is great for recovering the trust in science, which, by the way, has diminished because of the misinformation waves that we are experiencing. Finally, I think open science helps universities and governments crystallize their efforts to contribute to a global and collaborative environment of knowledge production, because the interoperability of systems and frameworks to share data, code, publications, and other research outputs truly can facilitate the broad participation of actors beyond efficacy-driven policies. Recently, the Office of Science and Technology Policy of the US President launched the Nelson Memo, a document that depicts the actions and strategies to be implemented to increasing equitable access to federally funded research results. This means that the US is actively committing to open science and open access. As part of the discussions on the implementation of this policy, the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine organized the roundtable on aligning incentives for open scholarship, and I had the honor to be invited to participate. In that event, I shared my views on the challenges of the participation of graduate students in open initiatives. I commented on my experiences leading the journal Current Issues in Education, and the relevance of creating these spaces for the active participation of early career researchers in the knowledge production. I also discussed the tensions in openness and doctoral education, because I see students are being socialized in traditional models. For example, we are encouraged to publish our research preferably in high impact factor journals, which has been largely demonstrated as one of the factors that deepens the inequalities in publications. Conversely, there are few incentives to publish in other journals, such as the Diamond Open Access ones. As an international student, I also shared my views on the doctoral education in the US, which I think is very US-centered and consequently hard to connect with the open science initiatives that are being implemented within a more international scenario. Also, this year, I was invited by the Open Access Scholarly Publishing Association and the Directory of Open Access Journals to contribute to the elaboration of the Open Access Toolkit, a website that provides accessible and practical information to those individuals or organizations that are interested in running an open access journal or want to improve the quality of their publications. The toolkit has a strong focus on helping under-resourced journals globally, and ultimately, its goal is to promote transparency, accessibility, and inclusivity in scholarly publishing. In the past, I have collaborated with open access initiatives in Latin America, such as Cielo, one of the pioneer projects of open access in the world. I had the chance to work closely with editors of underrepresented countries in most databases, like Bolivia, Paraguay, and Peru. Currently, I'm starting to collaborate with other initiatives for open knowledge, such as Creative Commons, and I'm very excited to get closer to people from Wikimedia and open source initiatives. Last but not least, I would like to mention the project about academic merit and prestige in the field of education that is being led by one of my committee members, Dr. Chung-Yoon Kim. We have started to analyze the data on research awards in education and are in the process of writing a paper about the inequalities and challenges of these recognition mechanisms in the field of education. I would like to mention that this huge opportunity of studying my PhD at Arizona State University is thanks to the scholarship I received from the Mexican government, from the National Council of Science and Technology. And I encourage other international students to apply to study at ASU because the university gives you enormous opportunities of developing your research skills and socializing in an international research environment. So go ahead and apply for studying at ASU.